Morning, Logan Unitic McCulloch here. It's May the 7th, about 10 a.m. on the C&O Canal Path. This is take 2 of a video I thought I just recorded, but another reminder of the universe to have a sense of humor and keep your equanimity. Because I did a rambling stream of consciousness video, and maybe that's why I didn't record, about why I'm doing this hike. Something that's been percolating in me for the last several days. So this is take 2. Maybe it'll be a little more succinct, a little more focused. I don't know. I thought I did a good job, but apparently not. Anyway, I have been thinking about recording this video. I've got a quiet stretch of trail here. Gonna do a 20-mile day, hopefully. Getting close to Williamsport, Maryland. Big rainstorm last night. Stayed dry under my tarp and comfy in my hammock. And beautiful lower humidity day today. Bodies seems to be adapting well, and a lot of the aches and pains have subsided. Blisters doing better. So take 2 of why I'm trekking for truth. I had some interesting email and phone conversations with an independent reporter, blogger from Kentucky, who wanted to interview me about this trek. He was taken by my references to Peace Pilgrim on the website, trek4, F-O-R, truth.org. Peace Pilgrim's an inspirational figure to me. You can read more about her on our website. And it was to this young man too. And the first question he asked me was, did I have a deep sense of social justice at an early age? And I really struggled with that question, because I don't know that I'd call it a deep sense of social justice, but I do have vivid memories from childhood, some of my few, of a deep sense of confusion. Not understanding why the world was the way it was and being confused about so many different things. You know, in hindsight, with 50 years of integration and growing awareness and some vocabulary, I'd say I had a sense of social engineering back then, that something just didn't seem right about the way the world was orchestrated and the way so many people seem to robotically go through life, you know, from an economic, a cultural, societal, religious perspective. It just seemed like all the adults around me were on some form of hypnotic autopilot. Anyway, that seed, that confusion has been with me all my life and probably propelled me down the path to be what some people might call a forensic historian, someone who just has to keep digging deeper to try to understand, as my friend and filmmaker, author, screenwriter, documentarian Alan Weisbecker calls it, how the world works and why it works the way it does. So I wanted to give you one example this morning, and it's not a radical example. Literally millions of people have woken up to the truth of what I'm going to tell you. I've done videos about it, but when you really look at history, you have to look at the year 1913 in the last 100 as a pivotal year, when what many of us would say took place was a bloodless coup d'etat, a takeover of the leadership of this country. And basically a group of financial elites bought their way into a piece of legislation by buying and paying for Congress, something that's been attempted and done on smaller scales basically since the beginning of this country. But this was a massive scale, where they got a piece of legislation passed and then signed into law by quite literally a bought and paid for president, Woodrow Wilson, called the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, and it brought into existence a private central bank, which means our money creation since that fateful year has not been owned by our federal government, not been controlled by our elected officials, but it's been owned and controlled by a group of private individuals, many of which are not Americans, international bankers, who have been profiting off of the monopoly power they were granted in 1913 to create money, quote unquote, debt actually, in the United States of America. And ironically, no, that's the wrong term. Synchronistically, the IRS came into existence that same year. Because if you're going to charge people interest on every dollar created, someone's got to pay that interest. And that someone is you and I. And that's what the federal income tax really is you and I are paying the interest to a group of private bankers who we unintentionally, we being the masses, gave the power to create money as a monopoly. Money is debt. That's why it says a Federal Reserve note, because a note in finance is an instrument of debt. So every year, that income tax you pay, and most of us think, and I did for a long time, it's helping to build roads and highways and schools and hospitals. It does nothing of the sort. It pays a ridiculous profit for creating money out of thin air, now at the stroke of a computer key, to private bankers. Basically, the ticks, there's my Lyme disease analogy, the ticks of our society. They're great sucking parasites that literally suck the life out of you and I, because they take the fruits of our labor for themselves and they do nothing to create anything of value in response to it. That's just true. Any critically thinking human being who sits down and really does their research will come to that conclusion, because all these alternate histories, as some people call them, I would call them real history, is hidden in plain sight. Anybody can do this research and come to these conclusions for themselves, but you have to turn off the television. You have to quit taking your reality from someone else. Mainstream media, another fact, 95% of it is owned by the same 5 or 6 corporations, and those corporations are controlled by a handful of individuals who are the same families, the same ruling elite, if you will, that were behind things like the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. So here's the other little nugget related to this. When you're looking at a presidential election this year and you're looking at your elected officials in Washington, D.C., and you're thinking you have some kind of an influence over what's happening in this country, try and find out one single federal elected representative, senator, federal appointee who's been talking loud and long about the Federal Reserve, because their charter expired in 2013. They were given a 100-year charter to be the monopoly money creator in the United States. It expired in 2013, and you did not hear on mainstream media, in the newspapers, about a raging debate in the halls of Congress about whether to give them that power and extend it. You heard nothing, except in alternative media. And to this day, they're still pursuing what they call their quantitative easing. Another phrase that just means they're dumping fake money by the bucket load into our economy, and we're all doubly taxed, because that's all inflation is. Inflation is a hidden tax on the masses, and it comes about from dumping more fake money into the money supply. Fiat money backed by nothing, with fractional reserve banking that multiplies it tenfold and more, all of which has interest attached to it that you and I have to pay for. So that's one concrete example of the kind of forensic, quote-unquote, alternative history that I'm trying to talk about on this trek. You'll find many, many more examples from areas like medical history, medical industrial complex, the energy industry, other aspects of science, quite honestly, religion. You can't really rule out any of these hierarchical organizations that have a very tiny number of people at the top of the pyramid holding a ridiculous amount of influence and sway over the vast majority of us at the lower levels, including the information, the knowledge that truthfully is the key to our freedom. So I'm just trying to do my part. As I started waking up to a lot of the facts over the last 20 years, and then I got Lyme disease. When I finally got some of my health back, I just honestly couldn't go back to my normal life. To save my sanity, I needed to do something, even if it's just walking all day, talking to a camera on the end of a trekking pole, and hoping some people might find some value in the information that I share. Speaking fearlessly, letting myself out of the prison that I created from my belief of what other people think about me and why that's any of my business. I'm still learning to overcome that. Be who you came here to be. Each one of us has a deeply personal and powerful creative talent that only we can bring to the mix. And the more of us that are taking responsibility for the reality that we're creating inside ourselves and collectively outside, the more we become conscious creators, and the more this house of cards of a tiny number of manipulative, very intelligent, and very well organized elite, their word, not mine, can take advantage of us, can be that great sucking parasite. We don't need that anymore. At least I know I don't. And I need to talk about it or I will go crazy. So my buddy Alan Weisbecker is traveling the country doing the same thing in his mobile home. He did a very similar thing to me, sold his home, most of his possessions, and decided to go out and creatively express and share this information. He once stated on his blog, and I really encourage you to go check out Alan's work, banditobooks.com is one of his websites, and you can connect to his blog from there and see his amazing documentary called Water Time. He's making part 2 and editing it on the road right now. He once stated on his blog that his research has led him to believe that every major event, economic, military, etc., medical, since World War II, the official histories, we've basically been thoroughly lied to about the truth. And I emailed him back and I said, my only point of contention with that conclusion is, why stop at World War II? This kind of pathology, this sickness, where we've been conditioned to give our personal power away to some authority figure. And if you think about it, you've been taught since birth, particularly in the public school system, the compulsory public school system. Some great information on my website about that. John Taylor Gatto and tragedyandhope.com have done some wonderful research. You've been conditioned to give away your power to anyone who represents an authority symbol, be it somebody in a white coat with an MD behind their name, or a politician, a celebrity, what's that? Royalty, again, what's that? All those folks that have this deluded belief that they've got some kind of divine right to sit above the rest of us. No one has that. No one has that in reality. So, there, take 2, hopefully it took. I'm going to end it there. I hope you'll come to the website, check out more information. It'll lead you to a lot of other websites, great researchers, good sources of fact-based news, not mainstream media propaganda, which is literally all that is. It's reality creation for those that won't do their own research. Come visit, follow along on the trek, leave your comments. Deeply appreciate all the words of support and any help you can give. If I'm going to make it all the way across the country, I'm going to need some help, and you can check out the Help Us page, on trekfortruth.org. Just went through a spider web. One of the hazards of morning walking is I get to break all the spider webs. So thanks so much, and thanks for hanging in there. And for today, it's Unitic out.